So now I would like to invite Dr. Manisha Pandey Tiwari, our next speaker. Dr. Manisha Pandey has completed her graduation and post-graduation from University of Lucknow. And after clearing her UGC NET, she pursued her doctoral work with Junior Research Fellowship at the Indian Council of Historical Research. Subsequently, she completed her postdoctoral research work at ICHR. Dr. Manisha has presented her research articles in various national and international seminars and conferences. She also has a number of books, published research papers to her credit. She had been a faculty member in Department of History at Abeda Inamdar College of Pune University. As of now, she's working on a research project for University Grants Commission and writing a series of editorial articles for Deccan Herald, the national newspaper. Her title for today's lecture is Suppression of Freedom of Expression, Censorship and Proscription in British India. So over to you, Dr. Manisha.
Thank you so much. And good evening, everyone. I'm so proud to be part of this. I'm going to present my presentation. I'm trying to share it.
Go ahead now.
Sure, ma'am. Just a moment. Yeah. Books won't stay banned. They won't burn. Ideas won't go to the jail. In the long run of history, the censor and the inquisitor has always lost. The only weapon against bad ideas is better ideas. Rightly said by Alfred Whitney Griswold, the American historian and educator. And it holds true for India when it was fighting for freedom. Though British government tried its hardest to control the flow of nationalist ideas by banning the patriotic literature, but could it really stop the circulation of nationalist ideas? No, it couldn't. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Manisha Pandey Tiwari, and I'm here with my presentation, which revolves around suppression of freedom of expression, censorship and proscription in British India. I'll try to briefly cover a range of subtopics during my presentation. The first one would be emergence of proscription in British India. When did it emerge? What was the requirement of the proscription policies for British government? Then what were those proscription policies? Role of printing press in the freedom struggle. Then press acts, the proscription policy of British government was defined by these press acts. What were these? Then the collection of proscribed literature in England, what was the requirement for British to preserve them, to collect them, and where are they now? Then I'll be discussing the most significant proscribed patriotic writings or literature during British, mainly in English, and mainly between the period of 1919 to 1942. So the relationship between government and the press or publication houses has always been one of the most burning topics in every country and in every kind of government, whether it is democratic, autocratic, or communist. Perhaps inevitably, government officials, intellectuals, and journalists throughout the world often clash over the nature of information passed on to the public. Sometimes these struggles produce social or legal safeguards to the freedom of expressions, and many times the consequences include censorship, proscription, or banning, and seizure of publications judged dangerous to the national interests, security, human decency, and to defend empire and hegemony. And in India's case, during the British period, British government's main purpose was to defend its empire and hegemony. So, functioning of British government involved coordination within the bureaucratic chain, which was quite vast, from London to India to the provincial level to the district level. From London, from Secretary of State of India and his council to Governor General and his council in India. Then to the governors of the provinces and his councils, and then to the district administration. It was a vast bureaucracy which depended heavily on an efficient system of communication and information, and also it depended and had to have a close watch on what's going on in India. And what was the easiest way of knowing it? To keep a watch on the literature Indians were producing. What were they writing? What were they expressing in their writings? So the emergence of Indian publication houses, that was in 18th century, it actually complicated the political life of British government in India. It was caught between the tradition that favored a free press and anxiety over the severe criticism. It didn't want Indians to criticize it severely, and at the same time, it wanted to give certain kind of freedom also, to show the world that it's not that autocratic in India. So, as a result, British swung back and forth from strict controls to elusive freedom of expression. And efforts at strict controls usually resulted from the specific episodes of mass movements, widespread protest, or direct challenges to the British Raj. Basically, during the mass movements, as the imprisonments would go up, repressions by the British government would go up, the proscriptions and censorship and restrictions, these will also shot up. So what was the proscription policy during British period? Basically, the relationship between the press and the government was based on hostility. Both were on the opposite side of the fences. Actually, government wanted the stability of its rule in India, while the press was inclined towards nationalism. So their relationship was hostile from the very beginning. So there was no uniform or set policy of British government in India as regards press controls are concerned. Those were based on the exigencies of the situation. As I've told earlier, that as the mass movements or direct challenges would go up, the hostilities would go up, these proscriptions would also go up. And the role of press, what was the role of press in the national movement? It played a very important role. Actually, it was fighting a dual fight. It was fighting for its own freedom and also for country's freedom. And at the same time, liberty of the press was also part of the nationwide struggle for the self-government. It was always in the agenda of INC. So, the proscription policy during British India was defined by the Press Regulation Acts. So it all started in 1823 with the Adam Regulations Act in Bengal, which introduced licensing in India. So then there was, in 1835, there came Metcalfe Act, which was quite liberal, which discontinued the licensing part. Then in 1857, Viceroy Canning, he reintroduced licensing. Then Press and Registration Act of Books Act in 1867, it made it necessary for every book to have got registered by the government. Then the very unpopular Vernacular Press Act, which demanded high security and confiscation by the district administration of anything which was found objectionable by the district magistrate or commissioners. Then the whole scenario changed. Actually, before 1905, before Lord Curzon's viceroyalty, the scenario was a little different. The relationship between the British government and press or publication houses was not that hostile. It was very low key. The hostility, whatever was there, was very low key. But it was all out in open during the viceroyalty of Lord Curzon because of his reactionary policies. And it brought new political trends. I hope I'm audible.
Manisha, you are. Just continue. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So the viceroyalty of Lord Curzon, it started a new era. Actually, his reactionary policies, the most unpopular is Bang Bhang, that is partition of Bengal, which the British government said was for the administrative purposes, but Indians knew that it was not. It was to weaken the tide of nationalism in India. So after that, Swadeshi movement, then boycott movement, then the rise of extremists in Congress, then Surat split, then revolutionary emergence of revolutionary movement. A lot was happening in India due to these policies of Lord Curzon. So a lot of intensity emerged in the nationalism. It got a lot more intense. So what was the result of this intensity? It was all coming out in the expressions, in the literary works, in the press, in the newspapers. So press became the instrument to reveal the repressions of British, the ill policies of British, and educating masses. So this mass mobilization thing depended much upon this press. So what Curzon had to do something. So the government passed Press Acts of 1908 and 1910. As per these acts, the judicial action could be taken against the editors, against the publication houses. They could be shut. The editors could be imprisoned. Their properties could be confiscated. The high security deposits were demanded. So a large number of persecutions and large number of banning took place as per these acts. Then Criminal Law Amendment Act of 1908, Official Secrets Act, and the Defence of India Act 1914 also strengthened the arms of the government against the press, for controlling the press and publication houses, for controlling the printed, whatever was being printed in India, be it books, be it pamphlets, be it newspapers, journals, anything. So it also focused on the vernacular material because of its broader appeal. And it also dealt with the import of certain newspapers and other anti-British material from abroad. As we all know, Tilak's Kesari and later Gandhi's Harjan was also prosecuted for being seditious. So these were the same sedition laws which were imposed against all these things. So pressures from Indian sympathizers in Britain and moderates India, who were these Indian sympathizers, they were actually backed by the Liberal and Labour Party of Britain and British Congress Committee. So these were the Indian sympathizers who were in Britain and moderates in India. Actually, British government wanted to appease these parties also. So it was not that it was always repressive towards press. It was not. Actually, it couldn't afford to, because somewhere it wanted to appease these people also. So it went hence and forth as regards press laws. So the policy of coercion and conciliation, which was a very complex political problem for British government, was to how to juggle these pressures, to how to appease these Indian sympathizers in Britain and in India, at the same time moderate or stamp out seemingly dangerous publications. So gradually what happened after the fizzling out of Swadeshi movement, the control and repression actually loosened. British government had to loosen it. So, but things again changed during the First World War. There were so many causes of worry for British government. The alliance between German and Indian revolutionaries, the hostility of Indian Muslims who were concerned with the fate of Turkey, that is Khilafat questions. Then in India, Rowlatt Bill, Jallianwala Bagh, and Punjab disturbances. But the tide of nationalism was going quite high, actually, and this actually under Gandhi, Indian movement has actually become the mass movement. This movement has gone from house to house. Every person was concerned, every person was discussing these reactionary policies of the government. And more than that, the Congress and Khilafat leaders had joined forces, which was quite dangerous for British government. And there was a lot of Khilafat material, there was a lot of material which Congress was publishing, which British found inflammatory, objectionable, or seditious, whatever they could term it, and they proscribed it. generation, actually it was the credit of making the Indian movement, mass movement in the true sense, goes to Gandhi. Actually, Gandhi took it to every household in India. Gandhi actually made it the mass movement. So generation of intense, which resulted in the generation of intense nationalist ideas, and these nationalist ideas were expressed through the printed material, which was banned, and the banning increased. And banning was also imposed on the socialist and in particular communist literature, basically the translation of works by Marx and Lenin. So in 1922, as the tide of non-cooperation movement went down, much of the 1910s Act was repealed in the Press Law Repeal and Amendment Act. So then civil disobedience movement came, and again the press ordinances of 1930 were introduced. These were two ordinances. One was introduced in April, and second was introduced in July. And every as per these with the imposition of these ordinances, every nationalist press, every nationalist editor, and every nationalist writing was banned or persecuted. And after the lapse of these two ordinances in 1931, the Indian Press Act with emergency powers 1931 was passed. In 1932, the Press Act of 1931 was amplified in the form of Criminal Amendment Act of 1932. Then again, the tide went down, the tide of the movement went down, and the repression and proscription went down. Then in 1942, again the Quit India, with the emergence of Quit India movement, again it went up. And after that, the press controls were, after Quit India movement, the press controls were relaxed, but censorship continued till 1945. And from 1946 until independence in August 1947, very few publications were seized. So what was the requirement for British to collect and preserve these patriotic writings, which they proscribed long back? What was the requirement of keeping them so safe? So actually, the bureaucratic need to refer to previous legal actions accounted largely for the attempts to collect copies of proscribed works. They kept it for record. So secretaries often had to provide information on bans in response to questions from other bureaucrats, legislative assemblies, and persons in London. The central and provincial governments considered the controversial printed matter as much a part of their record system as departmental files and correspondences. That's why they preserved them so particularly. So, what is so beneficial for us about these proscriptions, about the banning and preserving of this? Though British government banned it, though they blocked the circulation during that time of these patriotic literature, but they also preserved it as their record system. And it's kind of cultural heritage for we Indians. Although prescription removed a substantial amount of Indian literature from circulation, the process also led to the preservation of many works that probably would have scattered and lost. Attempts to meet political challenges thus have produced a cultural heritage that should make possible a re-evaluation of many yet uncharted facets of nation building. So it's now it's available at Indian archives, and some of them is there also there at Nehru Memorial and Museum Library, and I've heard that it's on online also. So means it's kind of blessing in disguise for us, for we Indians. So, the copies of banned literature used to be sent by the provincial governments to the Home Department, India, as well as India Office in British Museum, London. Copies in the Imperial Home Political Proceedings are now housed in the National Archives of India, New Delhi, in the Home Political Keep. When I did my work on proscribed writings, it was around 8 years back. Or rather, when I collected the material, it was around 10 years
Manisha,
back.
you just have about 4 minutes, huh? Will you wind up in 5 minutes? Will that be okay?
Ma'am, okay, ma'am, I'll try to.
4, 5 minutes.
Okay, ma'am. So these are available in London, and in duplication, this is available in India at National Archives as well as some state archives, some branches of state archives also. So and the literature in English is just a drop in ocean. It's in Bengali, Gujarati, Hindi, Marathi, many vernacular languages, and both in prose and poetry form. Why, what is so important about studying this kind of proscribed patriotic literature? Actually, what when I think what attracted me 10 years back, it's actually I did my postdoctoral work on this 10 years back. Right now I'm doing my another postdoctoral work which is on another topic. So what attracted me to work on this topic, I thought when I went through these kind of works in the National Archives, I thought it's a hidden kind of these are so valuable primary sources. Those were written during those times. They couldn't come in the circulation. These are so intensely written, and I think these are very, very, very valuable aspects of history, our history, and these are untapped, unexplored, and hidden treasure. This kind of hidden treasure of our history. And writings and literary works were the most powerful and effective medium of communication during those times. And what I think it was a safer and most effective option also, rather than participating in the direct movement or direct struggle. When people are writing, they were thinking that they are doing a little safer thing, and at the same time they are able to vent out their feelings also against British government. So it was kind of, these writings were playing the part of the ideological weapon. It was kind of an ideological weapon against the British. There are countless books, leaflets, letters, posters, pictures, pamphlets, booklets. This is the list of the journals which I came across. Then I worked on these. I read these books. What was there? Why were they proscribed? To know about them. These are the books which I came across. I read, and I included in my postdoctoral work. I don't think I have time to describe about everything. And the range of this literature is so varied. Some are about socialist and revolutionary movement. Some are even written by the British authors. The way they supported the Indian movement is incredible. When I went through these works, I felt so emotional about my country. Then some were and what amazed me more was the Indians were very well prepared. They were writing with all the facts and figures. These are the works which were so full of facts and figures. While criticizing British, they were giving the facts and figures also, that why are they criticizing it, basically about the economic exploitation of the country. What shows the ultimate lack of confidence of the British government was that it didn't even spare the programs, the publication of the programs and proceedings of the Indian National Congress during those times. And it certainly banned the most popular the work by the most popular national leaders, with the purpose, because of the reason of restricting the ideological influence of these most popular leaders over the masses. They wanted to block the ideological influence of these leaders. So these are the works which were banned and were written by the most popular leaders of those times: Jawaharlal Nehru, Madan Mohan Malviya, Mahatma Gandhi, Lala Lajpat Rai. I feel so traumatic and suffocating to just feel that I have just one thing. During those times, there was no internet, no TV, no news, nothing. Just the writing, what you're writing. So it is so suffocating to even feel that you are not even allowed to write, and whatever you are writing is not being reaching to the people you are aiming for. So the question arises: in spite of trying hardest, could the patriotic literature be stopped altogether? No. it couldn't. British government was not able to completely stop the circulation or publication, or it couldn't discourage the Indians to write these kind of patriotic literature, because they wanted to vent out their feelings. They wanted to educate the masses. They wanted to educate their countrymen against the British. What is the true face of the British government in India? What could have happened if it was not proscribed? Maybe the political awareness which came later could have come earlier, first thing. Secondly, maybe the intensity of mass movements could have been bigger, even greater. So after independence, though we are coming out of the shadow of these press controls and everything, and we have given in our constitution the freedom of constitution, freedom of expression as the fundamental right, but these restrictions on the freedom of expressions keep coming in news every now and then. Several countries celebrate the banned book week to show their protest against the banning and censorship, because it is still there in every country. The list of banned book is everlasting in every country. So the struggle continues. I would like to sum up my presentation with a beautiful quotation by George Bernard Shaw. Censorship ends in logical completeness when nobody is allowed to read any books except the books that nobody reads. Thank you.
Thank you, Manisha, for taking us through that chronology and how the macro reasons why nationalist writings were
Thank you so
prosecuted.
much.